All right, it's 10 o'clock. We do have a quorum. I'm Vicki Gordon from the Port of Pasco. I call the meeting to order. And as we begin every meeting, I thought maybe we should put this to song, but I will read the convening statement. Benton-Franklin Council of Governments was established by a voluntary association of the local units of government in 1966, with the vision of providing a forum for improved communication, multi-jurisdictional decision-making, regional planning, and the capacity to serve as lead agency in providing multi-jurisdictional programs. The services provided to the member jurisdictions are outlined by interlocal agreement and can evolve with the needs of the region. The Benton-Franklin Council of Governments currently fulfills the following designations on behalf of the Benton-Franklin region: the Regional Planning Commission, Conference of Governments, Regional Transportation Planning Organization, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, Transportation Management Area, Economic Development District. The Benton-Franklin Council of Governments Board of Directors simultaneously serves as the governing body for the Benton-Franklin Council of Governments, Benton-Franklin Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Policy Board, Benton-Franklin Walla Walla Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and Benton-Franklin Economic Development District. We share this information at the beginning of each board to provide context to the information shared and actions taken at the meeting. All right, we'll do roll call. Josh?
Benton-Franklin Transit. Benton County.
Will McCase here.
City of Benton City. City of Connell.
Reborough.
City of Kennewick. City of Pasco. It sounds like.
Yeah, I believe Charles is here.
City of Prosser.
Maricela Sanchez here.
City of Richland.
Joanna Jones right here.
City of West Richland. Franklin County.
Glenn Didier.
Port of Benton.
Roy Keck.
Port of Kennewick.
Skip Novakovich.
Port of Pasco.
Vicki Gordon.
And Washtenaw.
Good morning, Brian White.
Thank you.
Good. All right. This is the time we have an introduction of guests. Are there any guests online that would like to introduce themselves? All right. Any guests?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Pete Rogalski. I'm a public works director of the city of Richland, and invited to give you a brief presentation to start your meeting, I think.
Great, thank you.
Longtime member of ATTAC.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, the only other one, Mike Gonzalez, Franklin County Administrator. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. All right. I'll call for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda today. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now is the time that if anyone has a public comment that wishes to speak, please do so now. All right, moving right along. We have a presentation this morning from Pete Rogalski from the city of Richland.
Now it's going to be just a little clearer.
Am I just on the same slide? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
We'll start off.
Pete Moran just arrived.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, good morning, all. It's a special event to get invited to this group, and I appreciate the chance to talk about things that we think are important in Richland and hopefully impactful to the region as well, I think. So I just have two projects I want to share with you, and I'll just get right to it. First one is an intersection at SR 240 in Erin. It's the key intersection at the south end of the bypass highway, and right above, for those that move around Richland, right above the Fred Meyer store. It's kind of famous for gridlock late in most days. And it's been, I guess, this is just a summary slide of most recent recognition or work on planning it. So the region's transportation plan, I identified it as a congestion choke point. It's on the congestion management process, high priority corridor list. Richland undertook with WashDOT in 2019, a north-south capacity study, because that's the dominant movement of traffic through our city that supports the regional economy, and we recognize some bottlenecks on that. And so we did this combined study, and WashDOT was a key participant in that. And the council adopted a resolution that essentially said this location and the south end of George Washington Way, which are key points to do some work on. And then the COG, the COG awarded some funds in 2019 to begin work on this specific location. So again, we teamed with WashDOT using the COG money, and we went and we specifically used WashDOT's project development scheme that's involved in their internal processes to evaluate the location and options and come up with a concept. So in 2022, that resulted in all three parties signing off on a project that will address issues at that location. And here's a graphic of it. I hope I'll go through that kind of quickly. We've named it the SR 240 Erin Complete Streets Improvements, because it addresses a number of things. It addresses vehicular congestion, active transportation connectivity, and freight movement and safety all in one package. And just by way of orientation, does this thing have a pointer? Is that the top button? It is. Ooh, there you go. There we go. Can everybody see my cursor? Let me see if I can. Okay, right there. What I'm pointing to, attempting to point to, is some new traffic lanes there that are shown. Those don't exist today. They're between the existing road and the railroad, and that's a 2-lane elevated bridge carrying southbound 240 traffic over the intersection. So the basic concept or problem solution is that at the existing traffic signal now, all the traffic has to share green time at the intersection. What's the biggest user of the green time? It's the southbound trips commuting away from the Hanford site. And so the key element of this solution is to put those trips in a bridge over the top of the whole intersection, and off the screen to the right, so off the screen over here, that bridge joins the existing ramp and gets you onto I-182 eastbound, right? And so the connection reinforces the movement that everybody's making today. You just don't have to go through a traffic signal. So the congestion and delay and high-speed crash potential of all of those people arriving at a signalized intersection goes away, and all of those trips are flowing freely through the area. including freight
Are
trucks.
you going under the Port of Benton Railroad?
It actually doesn't have to touch the railroad at all, it's just parallel to the railroad. So we come on and, to the left over here, to the left, oh my goodness. To the left, if you were headed down southbound 240,
Okay.
you would come to a point and you would exit to the right. On like a freeway exit, you'd exit to the right onto these lanes. Isn't that convenient? Sorry, what's the fine for interrupting a meeting?
Oh, no.
Last time you were like, just yes. Anyway, that's a typical freeway movement. You just leave on a ramp, you fly over the interstate, and then you join where you're trying to go. And then all the trips that remain in that intersection are even today are sort of ramp terminal trips or ramp entry trips, right? You're coming to an intersection so that you can turn and join the kind of the road you want to. So, screwed up again. So the analysis, we analyzed whether it should say a traffic signal or convert to a roundabout, and the consensus was this roundabout will work very well. And the blue there is the existing ramp when you're trying to go westbound on I-182. And that's everybody knows that's a problem because you arrive underneath the railroad at a very odd angle and crane your neck or take your chances to join travel. And the blue, maybe it should be colored red because it goes away. That gets eliminated entirely.
Okay.
Because if you want to make that movement, you stay on the 240 main line and go through that right turn slip lane at the roundabout and join everybody else that's coming from town onto the ramp in at a more conventional place and angle so that you don't, so you're not having to make this really unusual merge at a very unusual spot. So that's a safety improvement. And then the final noteworthy feature is the yellow. On the Yakima River side, of the lower side of the graphic, there's already a very well-used, very popular trail system for people to bicycle and walk along the river. And from the central part of the city, that might as well be on the moon because you can't get there from here, and this is the barrier to join that system for a whole bunch of residential properties in that southern part of the city. So what the yellow will be, where it's on Aaron Drive, it'll be a striped bicycle pathway, like 8 or 10 feet wide. And then we'll create a crossing feature through the roundabout, go under the new bridge and under the railroad and join to that regional trail network. So that sort of fills out the menu of what a classical complete streets type treatment is. There's something for everybody. There's vehicle congestion, there's freight, there's non-motorized users, everybody wins. So that's the concept. How are we going to do it? The punchline at the moment is we don't know, because it's an improvement on the state highway system. In both dollars and scope, it's kind of outside the traditional thing that a local government just takes on and funds through, for instance, this group. At $35 million, it's nothing that this group has the resources at its disposal to do. And so Richland has been working for a number of years with our legislators, calling this our most important system improvement. And it appears that yielded some fruit this session when the legislature allocated $1 million to start the detailed development work on the project. And we are hopeful that that signals that they're getting ready to adopt the project as something to do in our region when they generate a new package of things to do across the state. So until there's a more complete pulling together of resources, we're just doing project development work now. We did that initial study. $1 million will get us a really good start on the detailed design. We did the land surveying already, and so it's starting to come together. But until you have a lion's share of this $35 million identified, nobody really knows when you can make it happen. So our next project is, you see the sort of yellow loop in the central part of Richland. We have two main projects in development right now for George Washington Way, and the COG's a partner in both of them. But I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about that central one. So we call it our downtown connectivity project, and the genesis of it is a little bit different than the genesis of a lot of transportation projects. A lot of transportation projects come from the traffic engineers who say such and such a location isn't working, we need to fix it. This came out of the city council's strategic vision for the central part of the city for decades, but I list the two most recent efforts. The council has made investments and grappled with how to activate the central part of our city and how to leverage the waterfront into a really productive area of our city. And so that this slide just points to those two strategic plans and how they say the central part of the city is something we're trying to enhance. Maybe I'll go, whoops. One thing I'll point out on here is that repeatedly over decades, the character of George Washington Way has been pointed out by the community, by economic development planners, by all those, as you can't quietly, pleasantly enjoy the riverfront and the central part of your city at the same time, because you've got essentially a highway bisecting it, and it's just not, the character of the road is a detractor from this vision. So they had a vision, the character of the road was the key problem statement. And so in 2019, again, we did this really deep dive with the community, business, community stakeholders, agency stakeholders, and this is the solution. The top graphic there is the current state of the road with four active vehicle lanes and then a center left turn lane and sidewalks. And the bottom graphic is the revision that was adopted as the plan. Basically, George Washington and Jadwin turn into a one-way street system, with George Washington Way being northbound, Jadwin being southbound. Each of them have 3 vehicle lanes, which means out of the 5 vehicle lanes that are on each road, you've got 2 to repurpose. And so the repurposing will be on-street parking to support, in some zones, to support business. It will be a barrier-separated bicycle facility where you'll have a curb and then 10 to 12 feet of space for bicycles and scooters, and everybody to be in their own space and be comfortable, not have to grapple with the vehicles. And then some widened sidewalks. And along the way, as we're designing it, we'll look to create some sense of place or some character in the downtown that changes it from a highway character into something that enhances the downtown. So this is our implementation plan. Basically, we've been working on design and fundraising, and by next year, we hope to start construction. We've accumulated, we are estimating that it's a $22 to $23 million effort. And we've got just under 20 in hand through grants and the dedication of some city funds. And that's it, unless anybody has any questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a question. It's Marcella from Prosser. I'm wondering why for the first project, which included the Complete Streets project, which included the bicycle access down to the riverfront, was it considered to have any sort of protection for those bicycle users from that heavy traffic, or why is it just a painted stripe?
So specifically across the highway or along the road or what?
Both, but
Okay.
yeah, especially along the traffic as it's approaching that roundabout. And then I understand it kind of dips down underneath. But in order to really protect users, people on bicycles should not just be protected it should have some sort of protection. We have protection for vehicles from flying off the roads. We have guardrails. Why would we not protect bicyclists from heavy car traffic?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I'll say that we haven't designed it yet. So whether it has a physical barrier between the vehicles and that bicycle way, or whether it's done with striping, I can't speak. Striped bicycle lanes are pretty common, including those that have buffer space or don't. So that's a point well taken, something we'll consider during design. The crossing of the roundabout leg is intended to have some signalized protection to it. So that where you're actually in direct conflict with vehicles, that there's intended to be a protective feature there.
All right, thank you. I think it would make it a stronger Complete Streets project rather than, I feel like that would just be checking the boxes to stripe a lane and not actually provide a safe infrastructure for users.
Thank you, good point. Yes.
Kate Moran, West Richland. I first definitely want to agree with Maricela because, I think one of the reasons I don't ride my bike around very much is because of just having a painted stripe between me and death. So I think that more than just a painted stripe might make it so that more people would use them, because I honestly don't see a lot of people using them. And I've heard people saying, well, why should we put in bike lanes? People aren't using them. If we don't have something protecting you from death or major injury, that would be a reason, because I know people that have been hurt by vehicles when they're riding bikes. But either way, I definitely agree that might be something Richland could look at, is protected bike lanes. It's been something that I've been pushing my city council for. I'm wondering, in this map right here, which way is north? Because the way that I'm looking at the map right now, the angle is different, and I just want to make sure that I'm looking at it right.
Oh man, see, as I'm looking, north is to the left.
Okay, so it's askew. Okay.
There's a
So
little arrow right up there in the
Top.
top right.
Oh yeah, look at that. There is a
Oh,
north.
there
There is a
it is.
north
There is a
arrow.
north.
I thought that was a street. Okay.
Yeah.
So north is that way?
No, that way.
Angling to the left.
Oh, yeah,
It's up in
sorry.
the right-hand corner.
I'm waiting for the VA to send my glasses still. I might get them next year, who knows? Okay, thank you.
So question,
Yes.
the exit there to go underneath and then for those trucks that you were talking about, the heavy trucks, is that as abrupt as it's drawn or is it more gradual?
Which feature, I'm sorry, I'm not picking up exactly where you're talking about. Like this?
No, but up there, the yellow, right?
Yeah.
Okay, come down, right there.
Oh, is this that abrupt?
Yeah,
that angle.
yeah.
So that's the pedestrian or bicycle.
That's your bicycle.
The
Yeah,
yellow is pedestrian or bicycle.
Okay,
Yeah,
I got
sorry, I didn't catch it.
All righty, I understand.
And I guess that's sort of a pre-designed graphic, so I would, that's not, in my,
They're not gonna go on 60 mph, so they.
well, they're
can-
certainly
Yeah, it should.
not.
Be advised.
As I look at that now, I'm thinking, well, that's not, can't possibly be the way it gets actually built. So I think that's a mistake of a concept graphic.
Okay.
Sorry.
And then to the inner, the other drawing, can we go to it on the, in the city? As you come into George Washington Way, my only concern is if you're trying to get to Stoneway Electric, how are you gonna get across all 4 lanes if it's traveled as heavy as it is to get to the left to exit, to get down to,
3 lanes.
Yeah, the question I have is, what are you doing with the Winco intersection?
Oh, see, I was told I only had a couple minutes and I couldn't talk about it.
Awesome.
I guess,
While you're here, Pete, you might as well.
well, this is only the second time. Use this.
Okay.
So You're good.
you,
Rest of the story.
if you guys let me, if you guys keep me going, you might regret it. Okay, the South George Washington Way, this is where we're adding the 4th southbound lane.
Right.
So, okay.
right.
And so how do you make a left across that?
Well, I'm gonna be heading north, I'll be
Sure.
on GW Way and I'll cross the other, GW Way is gonna be 4 lanes north, right?
It will not be.
It'll be 4 lanes south?
It'll,
Oh. At this
George,
point, they're-
George Washington Way northbound, won't really change except for.
Oh, it's gonna have back traffic both directions.
At that place.
At that.
At that
Yeah,
place.
oh,
Well,
yes,
further up.
yeah, well, see, well, no, okay, so this whole one-way system treatment
Mhm.
starts at the north yellow
Right,
block.
but I
There's
gotta
nothing about the south end that's one
No, but
way.
I gotta get to that point. I usually turn on, I think it's on Lee Boulevard is where I turn to get to Stoneway Electric. I'm not,
And you can still do that.
yeah, but do you have to merge clear to the, yeah, I guess you'll have to get yourself over to that left side of the 4-lane traffic to get to that left turn.
Okay, so the northbound G-way will remain as the 3 lanes it is today.
Okay,
So, and then at that, at the Jadwin intersection, which is where the span wire signal is today, the 3 lanes northbound will continue on into this, into that configuration. And so, for instance, if you're northbound today and you're in the far left lane,
Mhm.
you're forced to turn left at Jadwin.
Mhm.
And that would be one way to get to Lee and to get where,
Mhm.
that's gonna go away. You're not gonna be able to turn left there anymore. You're gonna continue on north and that'll be a through lane northbound.
Okay,
And then if you wanna turn left at Lee, that'll be your first opportunity to be left, and as long as you're in that left lane, you won't have to be crossing.
okay.
So we'll have, the signage on northbound George that helps you choose lanes today, there's that overhead sign between Comstock and Fowley that says if you wanna go left onto Jadwin, you should be in the left lane. That's gonna be revised to give a little bit different directions, but, all of them, in this system, all of the destinations and all of the movements that you wanna make are still available. If you, in some cases, you might have 1 or 2 extra turns to get where you're going, but that particular one will remain virtually identical.
Is it, just to make sure, the one-way northbound, is that 3 lanes of driving and then to the left parking? A
Yeah.
parking lane on that left, so it's only 3 going, but the
Oh.
4th lane is actually parking.
That's a parking lot.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make
That's what the white symbolizes there between the 2 cars is parking.
Yeah, that solid what line represents parking,
Okay.
sorry about that.
It's
Should have spent more time on
Oh,
it, yeah.
kind of a shame. I think that it would have been, and this is just me thinking of things that I've really seen, it would be really great to see like an extension, and maybe it is an extension a little bit on the right side of the screen, but to see the sidewalks get much bigger and just have like huge places where stores can have fronts that are outside, kind of like in the Parkway, how they have a little bit of space, but have
Right.
even more space to do that.
Well, so this graphic, I didn't put up for very good reasons, a design graphic of the whole system and what happens at every spot. This is sort of the generic concept that we apply, but that on-street parking is essentially flex space. If the lots along there, along that's wanted those wider walks, then you take that 8 feet that's set aside for on-street parking and you extend sidewalks. And that may very well happen at different places along the project where maybe you have turnouts for, a couple parking stalls and then a wide sidewalk bump out. And so we haven't gotten further into the design to go kind of, lot by lot and ask people what they want. It would have made the graphic impossibly complex to have all the different things there. But yeah, we're in the middle of all this design right now. Yeah, and all those things are in place.
Sure, and I think that, that also would be a good way to do something like traffic calming, because hopefully we'll be able to get to a point where G-Way isn't a strobe like it is now, and people will be more comfortable if there's traffic calming and things like that. And hopefully people will start using the highway more than GW to get to and from site, because I know a lot of people do.
Pete, we have an online question for you as well.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I was wondering, I was wondering if the city of Richland has a system in place for businesses to convert on-street parking into a parklet. Is that system already in place for the city of Richland?
No. That being said, I mean, the interior of the parkway was sort of specifically designed that way. And I guess that question, because the question came up during this study, and during the pandemic, which was, like a lot of communities, Walla Walla is a great example, did things to essentially eliminate vehicle traffic or expand, outdoor dining and all that kind of stuff. And the question was posed to us, is George Washington Way or Jadwin a good candidate for that? And I'm just the public works guy. But I don't know anybody that's gonna wanna gonna wanna put a set of dining tables in the 8 feet next to traffic on George Washington Way and create a parklet. So, and as the transportation guy, I couldn't, with good conscience, recommend it. So, there are, I mean, all those kind of treatments have their context and their place. And from where I sit, and I think where we landed as a city, George Washington Way isn't that place. And that's the kind of fundamental planning dilemma that Richland is faced with, is the central part of our city and the roads in it are critical to the regional economy and the movement of people by the way people move. And while a place like Walla Walla can draw a boundary around their downtown and say, we don't need vehicles here, and vehicles can get where they need to go somewhere else. We simply can't. That's just a non-starter, because you couldn't eliminate traffic on George Washington Way and pretend to yourself that they had an alternative place to go. And So, I mean, the constraints of the Yakima River and the freeway system say that if you're trying to move in Richland, there's only two places to do it. And it's George Washington Way and it's the bypass highway, and they're both operating at near capacity a lot of the time. So,
We have another question for you too.
okay, so that you know, activating our central city to be more comfortable for all users and to drive new activity was a particular challenge, because the baseline condition or a baseline requirement is that the regional economy needs us to be able to keep people moving. And the analysis is the one-way street system can match or slightly improve the mobility we have today. So it's not we're not sacrificing the economy and the vehicle mobility in our city to make these changes. We think we can do them both. And the comment about traffic calming and managing all that, there's 3 lanes instead of 5 lanes of vehicles. They're all traveling the same direction. So a user has inherently less conflict at each point in their activity. And truthfully, a one-way street system is a lot simpler to program from the traffic signal programming point of view. And that allows you to more effectively select or design how speedily you want movement to go through there, and how smoothly you can make the platoons move very efficiently at just sort of a design speed, instead of it, because when you're trying to manage traffic going both directions, you're much more constrained. Sorry.
Is that Charles?
Yes, I believe Charles has a question.
Hey, thank you. Good morning, Charles, City of Pasco. So maybe I missed the discussion early on or the slide, but what is happening to Jadwin? Do we have a design project to Jadwin? Obviously, this looks like it's running northbound, so I assume Jadwin's gonna be one-way southbound. Do we have a project design or anything for what we're gonna do with that?
God, we hadn't thought of that. We better go to the. I'm sorry, just again, in the interest of brevity presentation, I didn't throw it up there, but just take the bottom picture with respect to George Washington Way north, change the title at the top, and Jadwin southbound, and it's effectively the same concept with a little bit of tweaking. So yeah, the system treats both streets similarly.
Okay, no, thank you. I just, obviously being a Pasco guy, I'm not over there super much, and I just wasn't sure if the right-of-way size was, relatively the same. I mean, it seems like G-Way is so wide, and in my mind, I couldn't imagine Jadwin being quite as wide the right-of-way to work with as George Washington.
You're right. Jadwin varies in width, and that'll force some slight variation in this at different points in Jadwin. But the basic premise and the basic approach is similar.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think that really points out why we're having these discussions at this meeting, with the various jurisdictions being able to tell all of us what's going on. So we really appreciate your presentation.
Could I get one more question in?
You bet.
Are we looking at all about another crossing from South Landing to Warren Rapids? I know there's been some discussion about this, but this could really alleviate traffic at GWA plus over the overpass, but this is gonna take a lot more money than what you're talking about. But we need another crossing.
Yeah.
And I know it's been talked about a lot, but we gotta introduce it and get it going if we're gonna get it done in the future. I think South Landing to Horn Rapids is the perfect one, and it alleviate a lot of traffic on the directions they're going right now.
The north Richland Bridge?
It would be,
It would undoubtedly be effective. I personally think that it's a bad idea to focus on that as a solution because of the cost. The state and federal government has spent 25 years trying to figure out how to fund a replacement of the I-5 bridge over the Columbia River. And I don't see a waiting list to add bridges over the Columbia River anywhere. And when we can address issues for tens of millions of dollars, then to me, it's counterproductive to introduce a $500 million idea as a comparable solution. And how was it, 15 years ago? This COG conducted a study about the next Columbia River crossing. And that one was on the map, because it's always been on the map, it's been talked about, and it intuitively is obvious that if it was there, it would be effective. There's just, that's obvious, and you don't need a transportation dude to tell you that. I mean, that's obvious, but,
Our growth is heading that way, and it's heading in a hurry.
yeah, no kidding. So if I'm wrong, if there becomes a time when you know, a $500 million to $1 billion thing can be conceived as feasible, then we might as well. But I mean, I've considered my job to advance feasible solutions to people that, and while, you know, like I said, while in my tool chest, I can keep advancing things that are 10, 20, 30, 40 million instead of $500 million, then I'm going to keep, you know, then people like me, I think, would keep doing that. And when we did when that specific project was in the package of things that was evaluated when we arrived at the 240 Aaron project, and it was compared against making improvements on the bypass highway. And you could add an interchange to every signalized intersection on the bypass highway for about $200 million. And so when you could do that and make the flow admittedly somewhat less convenient than, but when you could invest $200 million in the bypass highway, and gain the mobility that you needed, then you're always going to pick that over the $500 million to cross the river. And so that's where we landed. And I'll tell you, when Richland City Council adopted that study that said that improvements to the bypass highway was a long-term solution, I just about got my kneecaps broken by WashDOT staff because, and everybody knows this, but I mean, WashDOT as an agency and as a policy is not about building more freeway improvements. They're going a different direction. And so even the notion
That's correct.
Even the notion of incrementally improving the bypass highway over decades time was at odds with WashDOT policy and was going to be a real steep climb. And that's just agency policy. And we still have advanced the 240 Aaron project as a key improvement on that corridor because it's the most important one. And whether there's a second or third one in the future, I have no idea. Right? You know, Brian White would tell you very likely not. But I don't think, I'm sorry to put words in your mouth, Brian, but
okay.
We think this one's important and will be very effective, and likely isn't followed up with the need to do a second one right away. You know, we think we get a lot out of this first one.
Sorry, this isn't a question, it's just more of a plea kind of based off of this. And first off, I think thank you, but also I'm wondering if something maybe folks could bring back here, and to Richland as well as the other communities and organizations or their governments. I went to a meeting recently, it was a special meeting that West Richland had that involved a short course on planning. And there was talk about level of service, and something that I heard was when you're talking about the user that it seems like we're talking about is the user of automobiles. And I'm wondering if maybe as a region, we could really start focusing not just on the level of service for vehicular traffic, but also for non-vehicular traffic like bicyclists and walkers, because I know that as a planner, level of service is like, oh, vehicles, roads. But if we start looking at the whole community, since not everybody uses vehicles, and especially since if we have it safer and more available, people might not use as much vehicles. That could really help us sell the community as a whole as saying, hey, we are a whole healthy community that we ride bikes, walks, as well as vehicles. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll get off my pedestal.
The next time you update your comprehensive plans, you're going to be doing that.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
No, I mean, state law
Yeah.
says you will. So when you do your comp plan next time, we all will be doing it.
So I have just a couple of inputs before we transition further in the agenda. Of course, the first one would be, I want to thank Pete for all of his partnership with the COG. I know you have a pending retirement, and we are going to be sad to have you go, because you've been a really great partner to us. But there were two questions and comments that I just want to put a pin in for upcoming conversations. As far as level of traffic stress, bikeability, we are going to be talking about that some more. Aaron's got some updates about that. Looking at that as a region and making metrics readily available to help that. So that'll be great. And then for Commissioner Didier, probably starting with next month's board meeting, we are going to have some dialogue about, is it time for an updated study? We have already been working on additional freight data and information in our models. Aaron's working cooperatively with WashDOT on some system analysis things that I know he's going to talk about. But that is leading to more of that conversation of, okay, as a region, is there a regional transportation priority specific that we want to be talking about as an agency?
Because I'll be telling you right now, we're gonna be coming to you about Road 100. We're gonna have to do something there. That traffic is, and they're doing a little bit, but it isn't gonna be enough.
Oh,
Yes.
So we're gonna have to have
Yeah.
some major dollars going into that area too,
So
just like
that-
they are here.
So that conversation will be coming.
yes.
Kate, on Monday, I'm actually attending a workshop for WashDOT. They're implementing a multimodal level of service. So they're having their opening workshop on Monday about that.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank
Pete, thank you so much for your presentation.
So in for
Appreciate
5
it.
minutes.
I
It was highly risky to invite me to a fire.
We'll let you go out of the way.
will. You bet. Yeah, really. Thank
Enjoy your
you.
Friday.
Enjoy your Friday. Okay, we'll move on to the staff presentation, 5 facts about congressional connections. Zach.
And I'm sure Zach is super speedy.
Michelle, you might.
Oh, we're fine.
Oh. Give it a shot.
It buzzed.
Pete broke
Okay.
it.
There we go. Oh, now it's catching up. All right, well, I will make this quick, barring any questions that we would have, but part of our outreach with the COG this year is we want to present a little bit more of our 5 Facts program that talks about the things that we do for all of our memberships and partners and generally in the community. So I want to take some time for one of our local government program outreach programs, which is our Congressional Connections, and some of the work we do with our elected officials. As you know, this is in accordance with our mission that we are conveners. We bring our local governments together to collaboratively plan, fund, and administer solutions to shared community needs. And in that vein, Some of the 5 focus areas of our congressional and legislative connections are to convene, to collaborate, to identify and connect, to support, and that all culminates into providing opportunities for our region and our member jurisdictions and other public partners. So first, really on the convening part, and that's the biggest thing, is we bring people together. We are hosting bi-monthly congressional connection meetings. These were started during COVID as sort of a Zoom meeting where cities and counties and ports could get together with the federal delegations, so the staff from Murray, Cantwell, and Newhouse's offices. We brought those back in-house, although we do offer a hybrid meeting there. So we get together for 2 hours every 2 months, and we provide 30-minute meetings that our community partners can sign up for. We had a fantastic one in January, and we're gonna host one next week as well. All the time slots are filled. The new addition to this is, that we're bringing this year is post-state session in Olympia. We are extending the invite to bring our state elected delegation too. So at our March meeting next week, we will have so far 5 members from our multitude of districts in Benton and Franklin counties have confirmed to sit in on that as well. And I think the big part of it is just to provide that discussion and that forum, get our communities in front of all of our delegation at once. And there might be some ideas that are at the state, that federal funding and state funding to collaborate on that. So really we want to convene those discussions. We do host some ex officio meetings. As outlined in the RCW, the state legislators in our region are ex officio members of the COG. And those are type of meetings. Last November, we hosted our state delegation as sort of a introduction to the Council of Governments. So they can see what we do on behalf of the communities. We can learn what they do in Olympia and see if there's some coordination connection there as well. That was a great meeting we held in November. And then as some of you may remember, we were able to host Lieutenant Governor Denny Heck last December and bring our members together just to hear his presentation and have some discussion and a little bit of lunch as well. So those are some of the ex officio meetings that we host on behalf of this program. And really, as I said, it's a forum for ideas and discussion and really bringing the region together in front of all of our elected officials can help promote unity for investment in our critical projects. Our second section is obviously collaboration. So as we work towards the region and we are in these meetings and we hear an idea from one city that would also work for an additional city, part of that conversation with our elected delegation is that regional projects can often have a greater success for grant money and funding at the state or federal level. So by gathering everyone together, sometimes we identify regional opportunities that can work for multiple partners. We also discuss specific projects. There's a number of projects for all of our members that have federal funding already in place. There might be some state commerce, legislative direct appropriation funding that's in place as well. So the progress on those projects and some of the issues and opportunities and successes are often discussed as well. And collaboration just provides that forum for dialogue, information sharing, and problem solving. We also identify and connect. So we are the agency of record for federal notices of funding opportunities. So we do obtain those from our federal delegation. Often they are giant documents that we go through and identify applicable funding opportunities for our member communities. And that's just part of our role to be a conduit for grant funding to all the local agencies. And I'll go a little bit more into our current funding opportunities later on in the agenda. But we also have data and information provisions. So when we met with the state delegation last November, they said we may need some technical statistics on transportation or freight conveyance, population demographics, growth. Anything that they would need, they can come to us to help something that would, to help provide information that would help with their legislation and their legislative efforts. And obviously technical assistance on grants. Whether it's a big or small community, we can provide technical assistance in grant writing, and you'll see a little bit more on that in the agenda as well. And I think that helps a lot of our smaller communities that do not necessarily have the staff to help with that, or the staff to really keep an eye and have that conduit to our federal and state delegation as well. So we provide that forum and that connection. And finally, support. Letters of support. If you go through the congressional direct spending, the earmark program, if you're pursuing a grant individually, the COG can provide letters of support, tying it into some of our regional implications and our regional plans, which certainly help the chances of getting that as well. We call it staff capacity building, but it's essentially the same as just helping our small communities that may not have the staff or the resources to make an application or have that communication. So we provide that connection to the delegation. And then we're really, we're working on, identifying and being that single source for information. So all our communities can come to the COG to find out what the current funding opportunities are. They can look at our regional data and some of our metrics in the region as well. That can help provide information to help supplement some of their pursuits for growth, development, and service to their communities. And finally, it just all culminates in opportunities. We're here to convene and provide opportunities for our membership, provide that forum for regional conversation. And, oftentimes you can contact one member of the staff of the senator's office, but these meetings and these connections provide, that forum to get everyone together in the room, multiple offices, different programs, different strategies for achieving grant funding. And really there's some idea generation too. We've had some public partners meet in our congressional connection meetings, say, hey, we need to build this, or we want to do this with our facility or this with our roads. And we get ideas from the federal delegation. We get ideas from just the people that are in the room. And regional accountability. So this helps our elected officials be accountable to our entire region. So there's a two-way role in these convenings, and it helps keep the COG in the loop as well. Oftentimes we sit in the conversations, we listen to what Franklin County might have going on. We listen to a program that Congressman Newhouse's office might be promoting. That gives us ideas on how we can better serve the region as well. And obviously just the sharing of resources, which is what we're here for. So that's my ultra quick 5 facts on congressional connections. I will stand for questions at this time.
Thank you, Zach. Any questions?
Zach, with the notice of funding opportunities, can I send you, because I think Public Works, how close are you working with our Public Works department? Do they reach out to you for grants and some technical assistance at all?
Not specifically to me yet, to be honest. They'll know on the transportation side with Aaron. We do say with the funding of opportunities, if you're getting them, I know I'm sending them to your office. I'm sending them over to Jason, but any community here that is our membership, if you see other people within your staff or on your team that would benefit from.
And I think the more the merrier to get on the list.
Definitely.
One thing I've noticed, like in terms of transportation for rural roads, it seems to be a lot more difficult to get transportation funds for them. I guess why? Is it just the volume of traffic? Because you look at Franklin County, ag is $1 billion industry, yet we can't get any funding for our roads other than through gas tax and through the normal channels. Are there opportunities out there that Jason can look into?
Sure.
Specifically, because I think we could do a mile at a time, depending on the high volume of traffic, but I talk to Commissioner Didier all the time, and we've got these rural roads that go out flooding, or we got to spray them just to keep them together. And I guess the irony, or I guess I don't even know the wording. It's just here we have this industry that we can't even support, and nor will the feds support them the way they should be. But anyway, that's my long way of asking. How do we get funding?
And if I might throw in here, one thing that could really help us immediately would be at the intersection of Dent and 68, where I talked to that landowner, and we can put in a curved road for the trucks, because right now they get jackknifed trying to make that more than 90-degree corner, and it stops traffic everywhere. So if we could talk to the landowner again, and he's already given us an easement to do this, to put a slight curve to get over on Dent Road, go down, and then you can get on to 182 heading west. And that would help us immensely with truck traffic, because it's all heading down to Glade Road and they are just pounding Glade Road into the
For
ground.
sure. Franklin County is slated, signed up for our meeting on Wednesday, but I think the short answer that I have, and we can certainly confirm with the delegation, and this goes to all of our members as well, is often federal funding is gonna be for federal roads. It's gonna be for your 395s, it's gonna be for your 182s. But if there is a way to identify that this is a connection of, agricultural goods that are connecting to a federal highway system,
Yes.
that are tied into sales and international trade and, some of those larger implications, then there has been some success with that. And that's what I got from one of the staff members too. So these are great primer questions.
That's good to
For
know.
the meeting next week, but that's the same way. If you can demonstrate a connection to a state or US or interstate highway, and identify that this is to move, industry, main industry, that sort of thing. And Aaron, you had something to jump in.
Just after this meeting, I'd be happy to explain to you what funds come through us and what we can help you receive, specifically like not to get too acronym-y, but our surface transportation block grant funding, that can be spent at the rural, which would be the Franklin County, and then Pasco. As Zach alluded to, they have to be on federally functional classified roads. So your road 68 would qualify. And then I don't know the network off the back of my hand, but I can explain it to you.
Yeah.
And 68 is getting extremely busy with car traffic to the orchards that are up there at the Columbia River.
Sure.
So, I mean, just to put in that curve isn't gonna be an answer. We've had some fatalities on 68 already in the last 6 months because there's blind spots when people are trying to pass and they're taking head-on collisions. And it's a very dangerous road. And so if we put that in on 68, it's gonna create truck traffic on 68, which could even be more hazardous to people. We're gonna have to do more than that on 68. And with the building going out there, that 100 interchange and 68, nobody even takes 68 anymore trying to get to the highway. Because you gotta go through that column of lights, and it's getting very hostile over there in Franklin County.
You said there's a meeting set up next week?
Yeah, and we're slated to go to
Okay,
that,
good.
so, so anyhow, I'm excited about it. We're finally in the game, so I don't think we've ever really looked for funding outside of Public Works. They have their specific niche. But I'd like to get them involved a little bit more, but of course we have all these connectors like 395, 182, 68. So I mean, it's all surrounding all these points of access where ag is going in and out.
And it is international trade. It's the hay export.
Yes, sir.
These businesses that are taking alfalfa and timothy over. There's a lot of export product that are going out in containers heading to the port over to Seattle. So it's going. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on our consent agenda today, I think.
I do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So at one point, we were having the Transportation Commission here visited, and I know that was before the pandemic. Are we still having those meetings, bringing that full commission over here, meet and greet and break bread with them so we can get to know them and kind of explain our situation? A lot of the times they do not know because they are never here to really see what happens in this community. Majority of them happen to be on the west side. So
Sure.
Curious, when it's the next meeting,
Turn over to Aaron on
and
that
can we
one.
expect an invite to those meetings?
Yeah, we hosted the commission in November of last year.
Okay.
Well, the commission selected the city of Pasco. They do, of their 4 quarterly meetings a year, they do 2 in outside communities. And so this fall, they selected Pasco as one of their outside of the west side visiting communities. And the COG did coordinate to make sure that the agenda was really representative of the entire region while still looking at Pasco, which of course was their city of choice. I think what Zach is talking about with convening our state legislators for our region to be more informed is kind of our first step in that effort, and making sure that we're being more engaged in what's happening on the transportation funding front at the state level. Aaron is participating in an updating study that the State Transportation Commission is currently doing on the entire state roadway system as well.
Okay. Right, moving along to the consent agenda. It's in your packet, all of the information for all of these items.
Madam Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Skip. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to
I'm
approve
sorry,
the.
who seconded?
Clint.
Okay, thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. Reports, Aaron.
So the first item we have here is 8AI, the 2024 Transportation Improvement Program obligation status. So this is a monthly update on how all of our jurisdictions are doing spending the federal funds that come through the Council of Governments. So that would be the Surface Transportation Block Grant Funds, Transportation Alternative Program, and the Carbon Reduction Program funds. So on your screen and in your packet are the 2024 projects that we have slotted. This is the federal fiscal year. Between last month and this month, we had one project obligate. That was the City of Kennewick for $666,000, moving us closer to our obligation target. Our obligation target for this year for a region is 3.85. We have 2.75 left to hit that. However, with that being said, we have several big projects within our region that are very close on the cusp of obligating, so we should not be worried about meeting our target this year. Any questions on that? Okay. 8A2, that is the electric vehicle EV infrastructure interviews. So as we have all heard, by 2035, 100% of new sales in Washington state will be electric vehicles. So with that being said, the COG is assessing how our region is doing and how ready we are transitioning to this, doing a electric vehicle infrastructure analysis. So over the coming months, Alex will be setting up interviews with our technical advisory committee members and our new planning committee members to assess the jurisdiction's readiness levels, asking them, how are you ready? What is readiness to you? What needs to be done to get to that? And then from there, we'll be developing our scope of work of what we will be assessing for the entire region.
Question.
Yeah.
Is dam breaching still on the table there?
Yeah.
How are we gonna charge these vehicles if they break those dams?
Yeah, that's out of our
That's
scope.
above our pay grade.
And who's gonna be
I'm being a
making
little
them?
facetious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's gonna make them?
Next is our 8A3, the Regional Traffic Count Program update. So our Regional Traffic Count Program has kicked off from the last board meeting to now, so it started in early March. We're conducting traffic counts at over 719 locations throughout the year. So it's broken up with urban counts in March to May, and then rural counts August through October. Counts might get extended if the tubes come loose, we have bad weather, something to that effect. So if a tube does come loose, these are the black tubes that run over a roadway. If they do come loose, we are letting all jurisdictions know. If you can, just please move it to the side of the road and inform us, and then we have our consultant go out and move the tube and then replace it. So just be aware of that. And if you want to follow along with the traffic count program, there's a link within your packet for the live update of where the counts are being conducted. Okay, 8A4, the Regional Bicycle Plan Scope of Work. So as my presentation last month was a 5 facts on the Regional Bicycle Plan. Just a quick update, that Regional Bicycle Plan is new. It's a split of the active transportation plan into 2 documents. So this year we'll be doing a Regional Bicycle Plan, next year a Regional Pedestrian Plan. And then the scope of work within your packet is a new process that we're doing here at the COG of developing a scope of work and having it brought to the TAC and to the board just at the start of the planning process, so we can clear up any expectations, outcomes, and it's aimed to assist us and the local jurisdictions on agreeing project requirements, research and analysis areas. For example, last month, Commissioner Keck pointed out, hey, let's look at e-bikes. That wasn't in the scope of work, now it is in the scope of work. So making sure that we're identifying these different things that need to be looked at. So just a quick high point of things, it's identifying the purpose, goals and outcomes, tasks, deliverables, timeline, budget and funding, quality assurance, and then an additional thing that you probably saw is also how we are engaging the community, so that there's an additional community engagement plan along with that. And last but not least is just a general update. Over the past month, presented to the Benton-Franklin Health District twice, once at the Safe Kids Coalition about the regional Safe Routes to School plan, and then the Community Health Branch about the regional bike plan. And earlier this March, we held TAC elections. The chair is Roscoe Slade from the city of Kennewick, or excuse me, city of West Richland. And then vice chair is Maria Serra from the city of Pasco. As it was talked about earlier, the Council of Governments is partnering with WashDOT to do a regional system analysis. So this is understanding where our problem locations are and then potentially identifying what future outcomes or things that need to be looked at further, such as river crossing, at-grade rail, things to that effect of, hey, we know that we have issues. What can we do to address those and what can we look into further? Next week, we'll be doing our regional bicycle plan kickoff series. So we'll be in Pasco on Tuesday, and then Richland on Wednesday and Kennewick on Thursday. This is just the kickoff series. We're trying to get public input from everybody on what they would like to see within regional bike plan, have community take a little more ownership in the bicycle plan. We also have several surveys out on that. If you cannot come to the open house series, you can participate by identifying where there's barriers, desired connections, and your frequently traveled routes that you do on your bikes. And then one thing that's also going on is that we are in the middle of our transportation management area certification process. So if any board members or jurisdictions would feel inclined, and we would greatly appreciate if you filled out our survey on our website. It takes 3 to 6 minutes. It's just about your interactions with the Council of Governments and any thoughts that you have with us.
Aaron, would you just refresh for everybody what the TMA certification timeline and purpose of that is?
Yeah, so the Council of Governments is a transportation management area, so that means we're above 200,000 people. In the levels of the MPO world, you become a metropolitan planning organization if you're above 50,000, and then you become a transportation management area if you get above 200,000. So you kind of go from JV to varsity. So you have to do things that are taken a little more seriously. So you have different requirements that you have to do. We get assessed every 4 years on how we're doing. It's basically a process audit. Are all of our documents up to snuff? So FHWA and FTA are doing that to us right now. And then we'll be having a meeting with them on April 30th and May 1st that these survey results will then feed into as part of the certification process to see how jurisdictions work with us. Are we pleasant? Things to that effect. And then the last thing, a new thing that we're doing here is we're having a quarterly planners meeting because a lot of information that we request from the public works directors at the TAC level, they pass straight on to their planning directors. So we're trying to cut out that middleman. For example, Alex presented at the TAC meeting this past month about the electric vehicles interviews. And all the public works directors said, well, that's great, but can you please talk to the planners about this because they know way more. So it's exactly why we're doing this.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Any questions or comments for Aaron?
Maybe just one comment, and this has been going on now for a few years, but out there in the blocks, it is crazy busy right now. Everybody's moving the large equipment up and down the road. And every year we have some bicyclists come out and ride our roads out, and it is very dangerous. And they're riding in packs. So when you address that, maybe it's not the best place for them to be riding or even training on a bike is on these rural roads, because it is very dangerous. Tractors are moving faster now with our updates and the ability for them to move faster with implements on the back. It's already hazardous hazardous enough for cars to get by them or around them. And when bikes slow up the traffic and they get frustrated behind our slow moving vehicles and they pass, and it's very dangerous, but I've almost witnessed crashes. And I'm just begging people to slow down, take their time, because we've had, fatalities out there, and the bicyclists only add to it if they come out there riding their packs of bikes out in there, and we're talking 20 bikes sometimes. Right down our rural roads, and it is very dangerous.
Thank you. I'll make sure to note that
And the survey you've got live on,
on our website and our social medias.
okay, encourage everybody to look into that, and take that. Very good. Thank you. Okay, Zach, you're on again.
All right, yeah, just some quick updates from local government programs in the Economic Development District. For the EDD, we were able to attend the Tri-City Legislative Council and the WIDA Legislative Days in Olympia. A general recap for both of those is basically lots of discussion on the energy economy, innovations and technology, both for energy, nuclear, and agriculture, infrastructure programs from around the state, and a lot of concurrence around the state too, that Tri-Cities is really going to be the epicenter for a lot of economic growth and infrastructure growth in the coming years as well. So as we talk about reconvene our member jurisdictions, it was nice for the COG to reconvene with some of these statewide jurisdictions and really learn a lot more about what we got going on statewide. And in addition to the EDD update too, we are going to be convening the first 10 members of our advisory committee as well in the next couple of weeks, and begin working on our SEDS update and just providing that advisory role to this board as well. If you recall, I think in January, we confirmed our first initial members of that board. For local government programs, part of our ARPA program, one of our things that we do, the ARPA funding we get from Benton-Franklin counties, we host our small cities meetings, our small cities summits, and we hosted this on March 7th. We had 12 people attend the meeting from 7 different organizations, and it's not just for small cities. We did have our larger cities present as well. We hosted the staff of Newhouse, Cantwell, and Murray's office to talk about the upcoming congressional direct spending program. Maria Cantwell's office has their application window open for that, but the other, Senator Murray and Congressman Newhouse, do not. But it was a great way to get our communities together to hear from the staff themselves. If you're interested in earmarks, congressional direct spending for infrastructure projects, things like that, here's some tips and tricks. Here's what you need to get together and to offer that help as well. So it was a good summit, and we're glad to host everybody. We've already talked about our legislative, our congressional connection meetings coming up on March 20th. So we're going to have our federal delegation there, 5 members from the state elected delegation, and we have 4 agencies signed up, including Franklin County. So, and then funding opportunities. So in your packet, I outlined, I think, 2 funding opportunities, but since publication of the agenda, we have revamped and put an additional, I'd say 9 funding opportunities on our website. We did send that out to members. I believe 64 recipients on the email got that. And we're going to do better about just putting it on the website, single source of information. And so, yeah, we're looking at EDA, standing funding opportunities from Economic Development Administration. There's a number of federal programs outlined there and 1 state funding opportunity too. So we invite you as the board and your staff and your teams, public works planners, economic development, to take a look. And if there's any questions or any assistance needed, feel free to contact the COG.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Michelle's report.
Okay, I guess I'm up.
You.
So just a couple of background items. One, of course, we have the new board orientation, and links are in your packet and also under the board page on the website. So the slides and the recording are there. So again, if you're looking for something to listen to instead of calm to help you to sleep at night, or you can go out and listen to the recording. The bylaws and interlocal implementation has been ratified by all 13 member jurisdictions now and been sent back out. So can I just have a hallelujah for, that 18-month process is now finally done and we can stop talking about it. We did achieve 2024 Well City status again. So that's always just nice to remind everybody that the wellness activities and other things we do with the staff mean a 2% reduction in our benefit costs, which every little bit helps. So we're happy about that. Our administration of the public facilities districts, I don't generally talk about this with our board a lot, but they both have some research activities going on right now to really make sure that we as the COG understand their expectations and their needs. So the Tri-City Regional Public Facilities District is an interesting one because it basically exists. It exists. It does not collect taxes. It does not have any formal activities. However, the bylaws and structure for that organization were written as if they did, requiring things like 2 annual meetings a year and annual officer elections. And yeah, that doesn't happen. And unfortunately, because they don't collect tax revenues, the work that the COG staff has to do to try and help keep them legal based on their current bylaws just means invoices we have to send out to each of the 3 member cities to then pay. The meetings are far apart. The staff always has questions. Why are you sending us this invoice for this thing? We're constantly having to ask for who's your new appointee for this committee. By the time we get someone elected, it's not helpful anymore. Anyway, so we're working on research to rewrite their their bylaws. So what is the absolute minimum amount of activity must there be to just keep that structure available so that at some point in the future, if it were necessary, it could be activated. The Benton County Public Facilities District is also an interesting one where it collects the tax funds for and then redistributes those to the Kennewick and Richland Public Facilities Districts. So again, that board convenes quarterly. Funds that are received into their accounts are then redistributed to those additional 2 public facilities districts. And we received some questions from the State Department of Revenues in the last couple of months asking about expiring bonds and other dates. And of course, as the COG, we're like, I don't have any of that information. I'm not sure who has that information. I'm not sure why we're supposed to have that information because really we're the secretary for the PFD. So we've been doing some background research to just make sure we understand what is the expectations of those boards, what's our expectation as their contracted admin, and to make sure that everybody is doing exactly what they should do. So we've been spending a little bit of time figuring that out. The Brownfield Assessment Program, I just wanted to share some, praise from one of our member entities about the work we've been doing under that program. We completed a site reuse plan for the former Thunderbird Motel property for the city of Pasco, as that site is a brownfield. And we got the following comment from Jacob Gonzalez, their Community and Economic Development Director, that this is a wonderful report. I finally had a chance to take my time and review the summary and findings, and I'm excited to share this with the city leadership. Again, I can't thank you and the Stantec team enough for this wonderful effort, along with a big thank you to Michelle and BFCOG for the funding support. So we're super happy that this is a program that our members are finding value in, and we're wrapping up. We're getting to the end of that funding. We have 2 active planning projects underway right now, one for downtown Kennewick and the other with Benton County looking at the 10 Bruno property for potential redevelopment. We've mentioned before, we will prepare a new application for the EPA to renew this funding, but we'll have a gap of about a year where we won't have grant funding to continue to do this while we're waiting to secure new funds. So unfortunately, we had to be 70% spent down on the current grant before we could apply, which is why we ended up with that year lag, because we just weren't quite that far spent at the time to apply last October, so. And then broadband action team and internet for all. We have 2 subcommittees working now. The digital equity subcommittee, both of these met for the first time this past week on Tuesday. They're beginning to study the providers and resources that are currently available in the region, so we can identify where gaps might be or how we might allow them to partner together. We anticipate this is going to be a long-ranging process on that end. The infrastructure subcommittee, the IT directors and internet service owner staff, so PFDs and ports and others, are meeting together monthly. And one of the reasons they want to do that is to improve the amount of communication that they are having between agencies about what's happening with the existing not only broadband infrastructure, but also other infrastructure. And so one of the questions that came out this last week was, how could we map upcoming infrastructure projects so that other entities are aware when, say, maybe there's a broadband expansion that crosses jurisdictional boundaries, but somebody's already going to do a road project or something else where they're turning dirt, and perhaps they could be talking about how they could leverage their projects. So I believe that we'll have an opportunity to show you guys maybe at next month's meeting, but if you have a chance before then, on our website, under, where's the maps?
Regional plan or regional, Alex, you can answer this.
It's on also underneath our tip section. So if you go to funding opportunities in the top ribbon, there should click on the transportation improvement program, and there should be a like kind of a region that's like called a story map. It's basically like an interactive map that shows all of our projects that are on our tip.
So it is a cool story map, and I would like to show it to you, but the reason I point it out is that we can do something similar if we can gather the infrastructure project information as well, to support this subcommittee and just continue to help our jurisdictions collaborate together. So I include a lot of other background information in my general update for your packet, partly to just, make myself feel better that you guys know we're doing stuff that you may not see us working on, but not necessarily worth spending time to talk about in the board meeting. So if you're ever curious.
So again, that's under tip.
Yeah, it could be, and it's also under, we also have the regional data hub. So we have like that as well as some other like interactive maps there.
Okay. Yeah. And then on the brownfield, I know you don't have any funds now, but is that for counties or for cities, or what's that for?
It's actually, the brownfield program was to allow us to do phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments, regulated building materials surveys, or site or area-wide planning that would help with the redevelopment of a brownfield. It was open to any property owner in the 2 counties, so public or private. It didn't have to be just jurisdictions. As an individual, if you had a property you wanted assessed under that program, if it was a suspected brownfield, then it could potentially qualify. So we had $600,000 and 2 years in that first grant. We're actually intending to apply for $1 million when we go back for the next ask. EPA got a huge influx of funding into that program from the IIJA federal funding program. So
it comes to mind Connell. They've got a building up there, but I know this has nothing to do with buildings. This is planning.
No. This could be actual buildings. So for example, the former Economy Inn hotel that was here on the corner. Here in Richland, up on the corner of Jadwin and George Washington.
Yeah,
Yeah, when the city was getting ready to purchase that property, they needed to do a phase 1 environmental assessment, which
Mhm.
then required a phase 2 assessment, and then they were gonna tear it down, so it needed a regulated building materials survey. So our grant program actually was able to pay for the costs and do those studies on behalf of the city of Richland.
so they had a roof blow off of their historical building up
Oh,
there,
mhm,
Continental.
yeah.
Would that be something that they could apply for?
So it all depends, like, if their insurance is involved, sometimes their insurance is covering the assessment costs, or it's already been taken care of. It kind of depends on what's gonna happen with the building.
Well, if Lee
So it's a
Barrow-
definite maybe.
Lee Barrow, he's on, so maybe he can answer that. I don't, are you on, Lee? Is,
Yeah.
I know that they're trying to get that done. They're gonna, it's a historical building.
Right.
They got a mural painted on the side of it, and they're trying to get that roof back on and open it up as a restaurant. And,
Yeah,
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it would.
I'll follow back up with Lee and
Yeah.
see if there's anything that we
Please
can do
do,
with
just see if
that.
we can help them out on that.
Michelle, curious, does that cover anything outside ground? Or is, like, he's talking about a roof that'll be potentially asbestos and some of the other
Exactly.
things. So does that include anything above ground or
Yes.
just below ground?
No, it
Okay.
could be an existing, really any building that was built before 1980
Okay,
could be considered a brownfield because of
okay.
lead-based paint or other materials. And again, this is just the assessment.
Mhm.
And so that's where you get into some of that, the difference between a private landowner and a public landowner. You know, if you ask us to come in and assess a building for its potential hazardous materials, and then we publish a report that says there's hazardous materials, well, guess what? Now everybody knows there's hazardous materials and then you are obligated to do something with it before you're ever able to sell it to somebody else. Private landowners are not, you know, they may not be as quick to step up as our public partners. And that's why we started with our public partners first, to just work out the program. But then that does lead to, this will go right up to providing a remediation plan, or the beginning of a plan, so you know what it would take to fix whatever the problem was that was identified. Then, through the State Department of Ecology or the EPA, there are loan and grant and revolving loan fund programs that could help actually pay for the remediation itself, but then that's a whole separate kind of program. So this just tees it up and says, you either do or don't have a problem, and if you do, here's what it's gonna take to fix it. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
2 questions. One, I was wondering, when it comes to the 13 jurisdictions approving, are those now on the website, the updated versions of everything, or?
I just sent everything back out to all the jurisdictions with everybody's signature pages attached, and Josh has just put them up on our website as well.
So they are all up there now. Perfect.
Yeah.
Then the other question is, it says here in the thing, that there's no new information about the Mid-Columbia Buildings Appeals Commission. It says that, goal is to have it completed by end of Q1, and once the buy-in is received, I'm wondering, when are you planning? Is it just right at the end of Q1 to go to the city managers and county administrators?
So the first part is Michelle still has to have enough time to just get all the stuff
Absolutely.
corrected. So that's what we've been working on, is the background research to know the hierarchy of which rules apply to why this commission would need to function. Once I have that draft together, then I'll be able to bring it to the city managers. They actually have not had a meeting yet so far for the first half of this year as well. With Kennewick hiring their new manager and just general transitions, they've not been coming together either. So the truth is, there's background research, but I just have to still get some ducks in a row, so it's a little behind what I wanted it to be.
Gotta get everybody up to speed. I understand.
No, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on to action items.
Yes, we are. Erin.
Yes, the action item before you is 9A1, Resolution 03, WashDOT greenhouse gas performance targets. So this is this is similar to the resolution that was from last month, which was about our annual safety performance targets. Within your board packet, there is some supporting information about where this new performance measure came from and why, as an MPO, we have to adopt this. So this was brought forth and we knew it was on our horizon in 2022. And then in 2023, it was formally adopted by FHWA, so that's the Federal Highway Administration. And they set forth standards that all MPOs need to either adopt their own greenhouse gas emission targets or they can opt into these states. So within Washington State, we have, with our safety performance measures, for example, we have adopted theirs and say that we will be planning towards the state's targets. If we can go to the next slide. So at the TAC level, when this was brought forth earlier this month, we had a good discussion about what exactly is the national highway system within our region. And this is pertaining to greenhouse gas performance targets on the national highway system. So the orange lines you see in front of you are the state-owned facilities, and then the green lines are the non-state-owned facilities. So this is just giving a representation of what the national highway system is within our region. So the resolution before you is about adopting saying that we will be planning in a coordination with Washington State's greenhouse gas performance targets. I also want to explain that we are in our first performance period. So the data that is shown here that explains that our region is 4.29% of the state's VMT, so vehicle miles traveled, greenhouse gas emissions. Right now, they're in the infancy stage of collecting data. So they've collected data one time. So between now and then the second performance report, which would be 2026, we will be gathering more data, and then we will have a 5-year rolling average, which is WashDOT's standard for setting actual performance targets. So with that being said, the resolution in front of you is about opting in to support the Washington State Department of Transportation about their greenhouse gas performance targets.
What is the target objective
That,
and when?
so that's a good question, and that's the tricky part about this is the target right now is saying that we are planning in coordination with. So we're doing nothing within our best interest to increase our greenhouse gases. By when? We're in our first performance period, so we'll be collecting data between now and 2026. So then that will set an actual metric for after 2026 of what our goal will be. In June of last year, there was a document released called the Vehicle Miles Traveled Proviso, and there is no set legislation yet on saying, here is the exact number you cannot exceed. So this is saying that we are, in our best faith, moving towards reducing our greenhouse gas emissions.
Charles has a question
Yep.
as well.
Thank you. What happens if we don't approve this?
Then we will have to come up with our own metrics for how we are monitoring our greenhouse gases within our region. So I would say, as we talked about earlier with the Transportation Management Area Review, this is something that is looked at of, we can definitely go down the path of adopting our own. We would have to provide reason why we are doing that. It's a best practice within all of Washington State that everybody has opted into WashDOTs at this time for safety and greenhouse gases. But if we don't, we would have to be able to explain why we're coming up with our own and then what is it.
Ursula has a question as well.
Yes, I'm wondering how this integrates with city's plans to continue to expand lanes and roadways. Earlier in the meeting, we heard Richland's plan to add in an extra 2 lanes to reduce, the slowing of traffic on the commute home from Hanford. So would adopting a greenhouse emissions plan preclude the expansion of roadways?
I can't answer that. But this, I'll say with the formula that is set forth about how these greenhouse gas performance measures are done, it takes into consideration how much gas is being purchased at a county level, and then they use a metric times vehicle miles traveled that WashDOT gains from different data systems, and then it outputs how much greenhouse gas emissions are put out. So I will say one caveat is with the increase of electric vehicles, that already reduces the amount of greenhouse gases within our region. So that's something else. And this is not a finalized formula by any means. This is something that WashDOT is doing that they know that they are being told they have to do. And it's a requirement of MPOs within Washington State.
Okay.
I'm wondering, when you're talking about that, and I'm looking at the packet where you've got the gallons of fuel consumed is times by that formula. So that part where the third one, it's proportion of the vehicle miles traveled that occur on national highway system. So that was only the yellow, not the green, right? So that would be like 182 to 40. Or no, not
395.
That would be the green
not
as well.
240. Wait. Okay, so like for instance, in this map, nothing that would be going through West Richland, for instance, not even the state route for Van Dusen, right?
Yeah, it would be only what you were seeing on your screen here. So the green lines are part of the national highway system. They're just not owned by the state.
Okay. Just
Along that same question of hers is how do we control traffic coming? We got cattle trucks coming in 395 south to the kill plant. We're gonna have dairy gold trucks coming in with milk for the dairy gold plant. We're creating these industries here. We have products coming in through all the processing plants, the big plant. How do we control traffic coming from outside to us, buying fuel, contaminating ours?
That's an excellent question. And one thing that was raised when we were going through this process is these metrics can be very, I'll say, urban focused. It makes a lot more sense when you apply this formula to only a city. But when you have people commuting, say, from Connell down to Pasco for work, our vehicle miles traveled are going to be inherently more because people are moving farther for work. So that's something that still needs to be worked out. And that is why there is this first performance period, because nothing is set in stone yet until the vehicle miles traveled proviso comes around in 2026.
And everybody's looking for a good buy on fuel, so they will travel down here to buy it. So it just doesn't look like a good.
I'm also looking about the fact that the Hanford 500 is on there. And that's a lot of vehicles.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah, great time for.
And I wish they'd come up with a different name because greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
And carbon, as a farmer, if I don't have carbon, my plants don't grow. I need carbon. And we turn that carbon into oxygen, so I wonder when we're gonna get paid for that.
Marisol, do you have another question?
No, I don't.
So I do have a question, and that is in regards to the alternative, right? Going a different route, setting your own standards and whatever that may be, that will take extra time and effort by the Council of Governments to complete. And the question that I have is, do you have the time, the skill set, and the money to really do it, to go and deviate from what the Washington State Department of Transportation is doing? You're saying, thanks, you have a great idea, everybody is following that because you did all the work, and now we're just basically falling in line because it's easier, it's cheaper. So if for whatever reason the body decides to go a different route, do we have the resources to do such thing? That seems to me like a pretty big mountain to really climb for an organization this size. Just throwing it out there.
I think that's a fair assessment. And also, to kind of restate what's happening here is because this is it is a new expectation that the state has passed and mandated that WashDOT implement, and federal highways are involved in that as well from a federal level. So as the MPO, you know, we have 3 masters that, yes, you have to have performance targets related to this. But this really is just saying, we are going to go along with the setting of a target and start measuring. We're gonna follow the path that WashDOT is setting in trying to measure and set at that initial, those initial targets. So it's the baby step in the process. It's not us agreeing to an ongoing plan. It's we will make sure that our planning follows the targets that they've set.
And that was my question. If we say yes now, can we opt out later?
Yes, this would be this is an annual target that will come back and say that we're opting in.
And what funds are attached to this? If we say no now, what do we lose?
You begin to lose access to federal funds. That would be the main thing that you want to be able to.
Which is the
We're being held hostage.
which is you guys.
One of the
federal funding don't exist.
Yeah, one of the challenges that we have, and several months ago, it might be time for me to bring that one back around again. I did a 5 facts presentation about some of the changing federal and state legislations that are impacting how we have to plan as an MPO. And understanding the difference between, because we are your conduit to those state and federal programs versus the local government, we are beholden to, there are certain things that we have to do as the planning agency in order to keep that conduit to those state and federal funds open to you. We don't necessarily have to like it or agree with it, but that really is the reality, and I think this is one of those. Right now, we did receive, for example, the carbon reduction, the CRP funding this year for the first time. I'm not fully clear on how that program and the greenhouse gas program and how they're, and the vehicle miles traveled, which Tri-Cities is one of the areas of the state that is specifically mandated to participate in vehicle miles traveled as that gets figured out. Yeah, for us, it's just about what do we have to do in order to keep access to the programs that benefit us, and help you understand when are the times that exerting local influence over it makes sense or is capable. But to Joanna's point, we really as staff are not set up to support the creation of an alternative if we don't just support what WashDOT.
Well, it doesn't sound like they even have the plan put together yet.
No, this is basically saying we're all agreeing to start tracking some data.
And
So that's
to
what's happening.
council member's point, that was brought up at the TAC level. Do we want to go down the avenue of setting our own targets? And it was shot down of saying, no, it sets the precedent that we want to go on our own path and we can lose access to federal funds. I think that's something that everybody wants.
It sounds like the best energy is unfortunately not spent on pushing back, because then that would also put more eyes on us. If we decide we're going to be different, then they're really going to focus on what we're doing and laser eye on us. But it also seems like maybe this is a way where we can instead expend our energy on figuring out how can we find ways to lessen our GHG, the metric that they're looking for to lower in our planning as we're going forward, since we are regional and it's for the county level in the region.
When the vehicle miles travel proviso, I would say that would be the ultimate avenue for people to voice about this. That is what is prompting all of these changes. So, and that is just right now a recommendation to legislature. So that would be something to track, and we definitely will.
Michelle, have you heard, obviously the funding mechanism for a lot of road maintenance is the gas tax. I mean, we see by 2035, the shift is to electric. Have you heard about a funding mechanism for our roads that's going to kind of shift into a different, or we get taxed in another way?
Yeah.
Vehicle miles.
Vehicle miles.
Yeah, but it's got- that's what's
So
here.
it'll be on the individual driver that will get sent the bill each year.
That's one of the strategies that they're evaluating here.
federal government is already talking about the.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that. And to shift away from roads a little bit, questions that we're starting to get in our planning department, and even as we try to upgrade the HAPO Center, and I would love like a 5 facts of this one. So the Clean Energy Transformation Act is causing buildings to be upgraded to heat pumps, to, different provisions that the state is really pushing and mandating, which is costing thousands, hundreds of thousands of more dollars. So I've been hearing from builders, I've been hearing, from other jurisdictions asking, do you know anything, what are the penalties if we don't comply? What are the management functions? So and it's been educational for me going through the RFP process for the HAPO Center, because there's the AC folks, they all have their guy that's like the post management person that to manage whatever, and I don't know the technicalities of it, but you have to monitor basically the pollution that you're putting out with your HVAC units and then report that to the state. So that has to be part of the contract. And obviously these are all costs that are going to get pushed onto our citizens. So, and there seems to be a lot of gray area, and if you guys can help us, I'd be glad to have Jason work with you guys on a kind of like a clarity type project with the buildings, because I think that would help a lot of developers and help a lot of jurisdictions, because we have a ton of buildings. Our whole courthouse needs to be upgraded in this fashion, and the state doesn't care that we don't have the money to pay for it, which is, really puts us in a tough position.
So I think we could definitely have a sidebar about that, because that's, definitely a departure from the action item that we're working on right now.
I know, and I didn't mean to digress, but it's just been on my mind.
And then also, that for me, just as a kind of a point of clarification, while we're talking about what is the role of the council and what isn't the role of council, of course, this topic we're talking about as our Metropolitan Planning Agency requirements for federal highways, federal transit, and WashDOT. But as a council of governments, we could convene a conversation, under the umbrella of issues of mutual concern. That might be a topic that we convene, whether it's managers and administrators or planners or, whoever else that might say, as a region, we want to have a conversation about, is there a solution or is there a conversation that needs to be had? But also understanding that the COG itself, because by nature of the fact that we are the conduit to state and federal programs, we also have to be really careful about how we are involved, or if we are involved in more of those advocacy, policy, legislative kinds of things, because that's kind of outside of our arena, right? So let's have a sidebar.
Yeah, and I would envision you guys more as the convener, not pushing policy, because we could do that. And but you guys have such good contacts with all the stakeholders. So that's kind of where I see you guys fitting in.
Yeah.
And forgive me for digressing, but that stuff's been on my mind with the HAPO Center and, with the greenhouse gases and everything.
But to tie to that, obviously you're not the only one who has to deal with an unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of being in government. I think there is a lot of lawsuits currently, because of those items that you just mentioned, but just like what Michelle stated, this is definitely not the organization to handle those kind of issues.
All right, back to resolution 03-24. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move to approve resolution 03-24, Washington State Department of Transportation greenhouse gas performance targets as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 03-24. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Michelle.
Okay, last item, and we are cruising in on 12 o'clock. We
Yes,
had some
we are.
robust discussion today, which I think is awesome. I love this. So last action item was a proposal that was in your packet about funding a temporary grant navigator position The intent for this, the COG had actually applied for funds through the Department of Commerce back in October to hire basically a staff support grant writer, grant identification position to support all of our member agencies, and for a couple of reasons. One is that we do have entities that have either contracted or hired staff to do that on their behalf. Franklin County most recently has a staff person that's dedicating time to these sorts of things. But there are also so many federal funding opportunities there and state that are available right now that our jurisdictions are also having to kind of pick and choose. Which are the ones that they feel like they have enough bandwidth to try and go after, and which are the ones that maybe are more of a stretch, and so they just don't even try because they only have so much support. So is there the potential of value for the COG to have a staff position to support this? When we reached out to the city managers and county administrators in early December before we applied for the Commerce grant, that we weren't successful in getting, and if I'm honest, they only made the decision last week and the funds had to be spent before the end of June. So I'm kind of not sad that that didn't happen. That would have been really difficult. But this does give us an opportunity to test out a potential support program and find out, does it provide value to our jurisdictions? How can it help us convene some of those regional level conversations so that we are partnering together on applications more often than we're competing against each other to try and find funding? So what I'm proposing is a 24-month temporary hire. So it would be a full-time staff position at the COG for a 2-year window to test out this potential program. What I'm proposing is that because this effort does tie so closely to the economic resiliency efforts and support of our jurisdictions, that we would fund this position partially under the funding that we have from our 2 counties for economic resiliency during the same window, and partially through our Public Works Economic Development Act funding, which for those of you who are new to the board, our original legacy revolving loan fund was defederalized by the federal government and allowed us to use those funds for something other than a revolving loan fund that supports economic development. Those funds were set aside into a semi-restricted fund, and we have never in the last few months, this is not like forever, we have yet to suggest a use for any of those funds. So what I'm asking the board to approve would be that that we hire a temporary grant navigator position to test the potential of an ongoing service to our jurisdictions over the next 24 months, and to also authorize the use of up to $100,000 of the PWEDA fund to help fund that position.
So that's what will come out of the PWEDA fund. What comes out of the other fund?
So the cost of having the staff position for 2 years is $184,000. Okay. So up to $80,000. And again, the funding that we have from the 2 counties for ARPA was it has to, on our end, specifically be used for staffing for the purpose of economic resiliency. So this will just be a shift between where we have Zach's grant hours funding there. Instead, we'll have some of this grant position being funded out of that effort. But the intent was really always for us to expand our staff capacity to support resiliency. And this is how we felt would be the best way for us to do that. And frankly, the first thing that we've come across that most of our jurisdictions were like, yes, this would be helpful. We'd love for the COG to help us with this.
That was gonna be my question. So 184, that's all in, meaning
fully funded benefits,
Okay.
salary, the fringe, yeah, all in for 20
not too
months.
shabby.
Yeah.
And then the second is, obviously you have done a survey with the members to determine their needs and assess if that position will be utilized by those individual, organizations. I know some bigger cities may not need them, but the smaller cities for sure will. Yeah, the smaller cities for sure will, but the bigger cities were actually really supportive, because it may be that they don't need us to write the grant for them, but they need some additional bandwidth for doing some of the research or pulling the background data or helping to convene partners to get letters of support. And that's where really the heavy lift comes in when we're trying to get some of those applications done. So exactly what this role will do and what it looks like, that's what will evolve over the next 24 months, and we'll find out what our members need, what the opportunity looks like. In the meantime, they can also then be providing support to, we have 5 federal grant programs that we administer as well. So there's never a shortage of also reporting and updating and things that we need to do for our own grants if there's lulls between the work of projects on behalf of our jurisdictions. But what I'm anticipating is that when we get to about that 18-month window where we've had some interactions, we've figured out what works, what doesn't work, what the issues are, and then we can have a conversation with all the members to say, okay, is this providing you value? Is this a service that you need? And if it is, then we can talk about, do we continue to fund it through our member dues assessments or a fee-for-service model or something else that could keep it going? But at the end of the 24 months, if we're finding, you know what, it seemed like a good idea, but it wasn't providing as much support as we thought, okay, no harm, no foul, we're done, we've had our test run, and now we know.
Yeah, and I was just about to ask you that same question. That question is, how do we define success, right, for that specific position? And how do we determine in 18 months from now that it's actually something that we want? Do we have some goals attached to that position? So then at the end of that 18 months, we are able to just look at the numbers and say, based on this data, yes, this individual should stay because look at the benefit, look how much dollars these individual organizations have been able to bring in based on the work of this person. Yeah, I would say not only the amount of dollars that were able to be secured in that time, but anybody that's worked in the grant game knows that sometimes the lead up and prep time, and even before you even get funding secured, 24 months is still a pretty short window in trying to get something like that going. So I think we'll also have to look at metrics of grants submitted, grants researched, because some of that is just the dialogue to find out whether it's the right fit to go forward. Yeah.
Question, obviously we have 5 jurisdictions, multiple counties, courts, and everybody else. How do you envision this person breaking up their time, and what will be the priority?
That's what we've got to figure out. The next 24 months. We honestly, at this point, we don't know what we don't know. The first thing we really need is just authorization to get someone on board and pay to have them here. And then from there, we can begin to outline what that looks like. I really want to keep the job description fairly flexible so that we can figure out where the need is. Is it research? Is it writing? Is it convening? What is the need? Yeah, because we don't really know what we don't know for sure yet.
Are you envisioning they'll focus on transportation funding grants or wide swaths?
So our mission area it is really infrastructure, economic development, transportation. That's really kind of our umbrella. So would we use this position initially to, let's say, help with an arts grant for something for downtown? Probably not, right? A good measure and some of the models that we're looking at to model this after would be that we only provide grant writing support for a project that is in the SEDS or in the metropolitan transportation plan, to kind of narrow that focus.
And that answers my question, because you just nailed it.
Because there's a million opportunities, right?
This. Okay.
Yeah, kind of keep it in our lane.
Thanks.
I'm just wondering, because so half of this position is gonna be taken by FEDA funds and the other half is gonna be through ARPA funds. Do we need to approve anything saying, yes, we approve however much up to the I'm guessing the same 100,000 from ARPA, or do we not need to for that?
I think the motion, where, I mean, obviously the motion maker can adjust that to however they feel most comfortable, but where we listed that it's the, you know, program as presented, but we are specifically calling an authorization of up to $100,000 on the PWIDA. Those were the two pieces that were most important.
Well, then, if nobody else has any other questions.
Any other questions? Okay,
I move to approve the creation, funding, and hiring of temporary grant navigator position on the BFCOG staff by utilizing up to $100,000 from the PWIDA funds matched by exiting program funds as presented.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the creation, funding, and hiring of a temporary grant navigator. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, I think this is good.
Okay.
All right, any new business? We don't have any planned new business today. And we're gonna postpone the director updates because of time, which we can do. Look forward to hearing from the jurisdictions next meeting. And I will adjourn the meeting at 12:05. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Official motion maker.
Oh, she is, she's
Very
good.
good.
She's so good.